to be a follow-up session. It's going to be about open APIs, use cases and opportunities. I'd like to call onto the stage Mr. Mucahit Gundebahar from Kuveyt Turk, and Esat Belhan from Yapı Kredi, and İlhan Bağören from Telenity, and he will be moderating the panel. You're welcome. Have a good session. Thank you. You're welcome. So the stage is yours for 30 minutes. Thank you.
Merhaba, ben İlhan Bağören, Telenity'nin kurucu ve CEO'suyum. This is İlhan Bağören. I'm the founder and CEO of Telenity. We are in telecommunications industry. I would like to give you an example of how APIs are so important in today. In telecommunications industry, APIs have been in use for probably 20 years or so. And you must have heard 5G coming as a big revolution in 2 or 3 years, where it's not going to be a transition like 2G to 3G, 3G to 4G, but it will be a transformation of all industries, including Fintech. And there is a worldwide study going on writing the standards, and they were pretty much wrapped up last year. But the industry decided that it's a huge investment and it's very difficult to bring a business case to deploy 5G. So everybody went back, and most of the standards committees were tasked to develop APIs, so that APIs can help develop an ecosystem that will bring revenues to the operators. So operators, rather than generating revenues themselves, will use the ecosystem to pay for the business case. So there is so much value in API. So I like the morning presentation where APIs were A was crossed, and it's a value creation. Similarly, the banks are in a similar position with mobile operators. They can use the ecosystem to develop applications and value for the banks. So there's a much larger cake using the ecosystem to generate value for themselves and for the industry. Saying that, we have our guests from 2 banks who believe in the value of APIs and have done some good work already. I would like to ask them about what is the policies and governance that you prepared, and then what APIs did you choose to offer, and also how is your interaction with the developer community? Mucahit, would you like to start?
Yeah. Actually, we believe that banks only survive if they find a way to work with fintechs, and APIs is a gateway for banks to communicate, to collaborate with fintechs. Therefore, we opened our API portal 2-3 months ago. In our API market, there are 26 APIs we opened, and it is going to be 100 plus by the end of this year. The platform is open to everyone. You can register instantly from developer.kuveytturk.com.tr and start to consume our API. In general, most of the banks showing just currency rates, interest rates, branch location, ATM location types of APIs. But we offered our developers, our fintech audience, money transfers, foreign exchange operations, account informations, kind of APIs, as well as loans and credits. And we are planning to open credit cards, POS type of APIs in this year. And in the first phase, we focused on, for APIs, transactions we delivered from channels in the first phase. In the second phase, we are going to focus on branch automation, branch transactions as well. So, a fintech, for example, after we delivered every kind of APIs, a fintech may have their own banks. They provide services to their own customers using, consuming our APIs. In this scenario, fintech's customers will our customers indirectly. So with opening APIs, we are gonna gain indirectly. May I continue? Or?
Sure. Esat Bey, please
Sure.
tell us what you did at Yapı Kredi.
Yeah, on the governance side, of course, this is not looking like the other governance, like the channels, digital channels of mobile and internet. This is the new channel. API is the new channel for the banks, but it's not the governance. You cannot apply directly to the API channel as it were at the mobile and internet channel. So we have to. We are going to bring up a new governance style, new governance management process for this new API channel. This is involving all the SBUs of the bank into the same bucket to create the new strategy of this API, to provide it to fintechs, developers, or other third parties who are going to use it to create a value. And we have talked about the use cases, and you have presented the use cases, but in fact, we are not seeing that we are really sure about what the use cases are going to be. Because this is the API business, so you have to be sure that you provide these kind of APIs strongly and in a way of very, very conveniently to the fintechs, and forget about the use cases which they are going to create. Of course, the use cases should be creative and revenue. They should have business models, revenue models to fund these API creation, but the creativity should be the first to use these APIs. And also, coming to the community part, to release the APIs through the fintechs or developers, and sorry for this, and let them use these APIs by their side alone is not enough. It's not enough for them. Yeah, maybe someday. So we have to create a community around these APIs to make them use, to make developers and fintechs to use these APIs. So we have to work like a startup, as if they are startups. So we have to understand their requirements. We have to understand their use cases, to evaluate their proposals, to bring their products and services together, collaborate with them. So a community management is including in the API business management. So that's why we created Code.Yapı Kredi to bring developers and fintechs together to understand them, to find out their requirements, and also to manage them, to direct them to the right side if they are going through the maybe wrong way, or make them correct us about what APIs should be released or what specs should be implemented. So this is the way of API business management, what we are going to plan.
Now, if you make the similarities with telecom business, there has been always a conflict in telecom business, which will happen in banks too. There is a strong desire to grow the ecosystem, which means that most of the banks should offer similar things so that the developer community can develop one app and can run on all banks. But at the same time, the banks would like to use this as setting themselves apart. In Turkey, for example, we had the worst ecosystems in the country because most of the operators said, you work with me only, you work with another operator, you can't work with me. So that kept the pies very small, but 100% to that operator, but it didn't grow. What are your thoughts? Are you looking to, how do you look to this kind of setting a standard environment at the one end so that the developer community can develop applications that can run on all, with all banks, as opposed to you use our API, you develop apps with us?
Actually, fintechs or a developer community have a chance that they can offer better products from banks for banking industry, because they have a chance to combine different banks' APIs or diversify a bank's product or apply different pricing policies, etc. I believe that fintechs using this kind of methodologies will dominate financial industry in the close future within 4 or 5 years. And regulation also, at least in the Europe side, support fintechs, fintech ecosystem. And I also believe that we will see the fintech ecosystem is a large ecosystem and a more dominant ecosystem in the market.
First of all, you don't have any chance to see yourself as a conservative institution against other third parties, because at least somebody will come and do something before you if you don't move about this strategy. So first, I have to say that we have released 54 APIs through
That's a good number.
developers, including credit and credit card applications, money transfers, account opening, and other, of course, public APIs like market data.
Mortgage rates and that.
Yeah, and more are going to come. So we are really working close with fintechs, and every fintech or developers that have ideas to create a fintech are very valuable for us to, as I have mentioned before, to gather their requirements. So the strategy that we are going to bring up with this API business is going to set by fintechs itself, not by ourselves. That's why I have my. I'm coming to that. So I didn't finish my answer yet, but I have to just settle something before that. That's not our priority to have this fintech to work only for us. Of course, no. I tried to explain that before. You don't have any chance to do that.
Yeah.
It's not your choice. It's an obligation that you have to work with other fintechs that are working with other banks. So this is the financial world, and
realities of
yeah, the realities of this. Not only the financial world, of course, the mobile operators or other sectors should have to collaborate with the third parties that are working with other competitors.
You would think that.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks.
Yeah, opening APIs means that you will work with other fintechs with ignoring if it is working with other bank or not. So I think this is the answer.
Yeah, thanks. That's the good answer I wanted to hear also. What is your view about PSD2 type regulations eventually either being developed by Turkish regulators or banks having to, even without Turkish regulators, having to be forced to use them?
It is the challenging part for us, the developing API market, because we have a clear API definition and API regulation here in Turkey. We developed our API market applying 7 different regulations, including PSD2, open market, communicate with principles, BRSA principles, yani every kind of.
So you're ahead of PSD2.
Yes, yeah. After developed our platform, we did a self-audit work study with KPMG. KPMG analyzed our system and submit a report. So our system comply with 7 different, including PST and open market standards.
Okay.
But it brings some difficulties for developers because every regulation brings extra additional enforcements and which is not user-friendly for end user, for fintechs. We discussed several times local regulation authorities. I believe there will be some actions to be taken in order to make our regulation lean. As I mentioned, regulation is the challenging part of the API market, and also security. Yeah, security is also a main issue. Especially if you open an API like money transfers or account information type of APIs, there are some additional requirements coming, like local GDPR, KVKK type of regulation. You have to do that. Therefore, additional to KPMG, for security perspective, we several penetration tests were performed in our API portal by local security team and external private companies. It is.
So you're ready. Okay.
We are ready. I mean, you can consume our API now.
Okay.
And we developed our API in November.
I meant PSD2 ready.
PSD2 ready, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Sure.
But additional to PST, if you apply additional regulation, I mean, using consuming consuming APIs become harder.
I think it complicates things.
Yeah,
I
it's
see.
complicated.
Okay.
Yeah, the regulations. This is not my official. This is not the official point of view. I will talk as Esat, not Yapı Kredi title. But if you want to create something really values to the customers or other third parties, you have to forget about the regulations first. This is my point of view. So you have to first create something, then find a way if it fits in the regulations or not. Maybe you will find some workaround solutions. So the regulations always are the institutions that are trying to fit you into some
Kill the feasibility of the business.
yeah, maybe what you say. But coming to the official side, yeah, we are at the Turkey, so we are leading the digital banking in the world. So I believe this. I saw that. So everybody maybe would be agreeing with me about this. So we have to be further of the regulations. What did you call if it is PSD2 or not? So we are ready, as Mucahit said, as Yapı Kredi, we are already ready for the APIs, PSD2 compliant APIs. But we are not thinking about what PSD2 will bring to us. We are thinking about just what we will create, what our third parties will create values to our customers or to other institutions over using our own APIs. So we are going to be, as Mucahit mentioned before, we all are going to be bank in the cloud. And so we have to be ready for this, not for the regulations. Of course, regulations will come after that. Of course, we have to find some solutions to apply, to be compliant with the regulations. But the main issue is to be differentiative. The main issue is to create the best product, to create the best solution for consumers.
Okay.
So
to put the seeds and hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
My point.
I guess we have a few minutes for questions. Are there any questions for our speakers?
Again.
Please.
Sure.
Can you state your name and affiliation? Yeah.
So it's
Your name and affiliation?
sorry, Hilal Sarı from Doğan News Agency.
Thank you.
Disruptive technologies are usually faster than the regulation, like Uber, etc. But then afterwards, there were regulations there, and these companies had to pay a lot of fines in different countries, different jurisdictions. Do you think that will bring also like huge fines in the near future? Okay, we have the innovation, then comes the regulation, and then maybe the banks have to pay big fines. Do you foresee something like that?
No pain, no gain.
So yes.
So I would like to ask you a question. Would you?
I'm the journalist here.
Okay, okay, but think it like I'm asking it to me. Would I still establish a company like Uber if the regulations were not ready for that? Yes, I would. So you would too, of course. So that's what I am trying to explain about what regulations are doing for the creativity and productivity.
So that's something you just take the risk and...
Of course, I would be the Uber again if it was 5 years ago, and I would pay the fines again if it was...
That's official from Yapı Kredi,
No, no.
No, this is Esat Bey.
No, it's not. But I'm working for Yapı Kredi, so I can bring this point of view to Yapı Kredi if you agree with that.
Any other question? Okay. Yeah, please. Mustafa Bey.
What is next then for the banks? What are you planning to do in the near future?
Okay, I think in the close future, we will see a dramatic change in a financial industry. In the last year and the year before, in total, we closed, as banking industry, we closed 800 branches in the market. And the number of employees decreased 13,000, comes to 6.5% decreased in the last 2 years. And this is a trend, and this trend will continue, I hope. Most of the bank, I don't know, Yapı Kredi has or not, have decreased target, not the increased target from branch perspective. I'm telling these facts because as banks, we believe that something, especially fintechs, you know, the name of something, fintechs will disrupt us, disrupt the industry. In order to make our site safer, we are trying to disrupt ourselves. And for example, as Kuveyt Turk, we established a fintech R&D team. The fintech R&D team within organization, and they are working like startups, not enterprise. They are not using enterprise processes. Next step for banks, like the London or European cases, establishing direct banking banks or digital challenger banks, and increasing not for channel part, not for digital channel part, establishing platforms like APIs and collaborate with fintechs. This is the only way. And there are some collaboration methods, like you can invest for fintechs, you can buy fintechs, you can establish fintechs, or you can create fintech ecosystems or incubation. There are lots of methods. But this is the fact that we will not see the banking environment in the 4 or 5 years like today. It will be a different, total different picture.
Just very quick question, sorry. Since you have made your APIs available for both of you, right?
Yes.
I mean, test environment, sandbox, or whatever it is, have you managed to integrate any external product into your product line or portfolio so far?
Okay.
3 months ago, you said, right? It's a very short term to integrate with somebody.
Let me give you some,
as you have mentioned.
let me give you some figures. We opened our API market with 26 API 3 months ago. Somebody called me, and there are 225 registered users so far, and 136 applications in our portfolio. But they are still developing their application.
By external parties.
By external parties, all of them registered users and application portfolio, both of them are external parties. And there are lots of new API demands coming from these external parties. We will make this 26 APIs to 100 plus by the end of this year. And our goal is converting all of our channels consuming to these APIs, not the web services or direct integrations. We will kill those direct integrations.
What's next for the banks was the first question. I think it's
It's an hour-long discussion.
no, it's an hour-long discussion. But banks are going to be platforms. So the closing the branch is just the result, not the target. So yes, when you going to digitalize, when you the digital transition is a must for the banks, and the best way to do this is releasing APIs in an open banking API methodology. So the platform will bring up with the new opportunities, bring up, of course, for the new processes you have to do, like collaborating fintechs, creating an ecosystem, creating fintechs, or establishing or investing to them. So this is the new way of business, doing business for the banks. Investing, creating, collaborating. The second question, yeah, we are working with the fintechs, and we have started POCs with the fintechs to integrate with our own APIs. We have completed a very successful hackathon last month, and I think that 30 teams involved into this hackathon, and over 3 million rows of code has been implemented. So there are really great ideas, really great product ideas to create over these APIs of Yapı Kredi. So you will see at least 1 or 2 fintechs integrated with the Yapı Kredi before the first half of this year.
One comment I may make. The development ministry is preparing the next 5 years plan these days, and the conclusion by many at those plans is one of the major problems of ICT industry in Turkey is fat banks and fat mobile operators having huge R&D departments in them, developing solutions rather than those smart guys, highly paid, being in the ecosystem, developing products that can be sold elsewhere and then exported. So API business is a tremendous tool to get to that. Open APIs, let those huge development groups, not necessarily research groups, you have your research groups, but let those developers out in the market fund them as external investments, let them innovate.
You're right, we are in a new economy, so the most limited resource of this new economy is, I believe, talent. So all the banks, all the companies are trying to find out the right talent to create the right product for itself. But the API strategy, the API business way of doing this is creating some new point of view. You don't have to hire any talent. You don't have to find out any talent to spend time to find out the right talent. But you just release your APIs, and that API will find the right talent itself, and it will create the product itself on your own platform. So you have to share revenue, of course, maybe, but it will increase the customer base, it will increase the product base of these institutions. So this is the real opportunity.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.